In the heart of Europe, Hungary is forging a new path, one that diverges sharply from its Western allies. Prime Minister Orbán's pivot toward China and the BRICS bloc challenges the post-Cold War European consensus. Hungary's actions are testing the EU's unity and its ability to present a common front. Economic rewards from the East could come at the cost of political isolation from Europe. The new European fault line runs straight through Budapest. Orbán's pivot is rooted in his vision of illiberal democracy, prioritizing sovereignty and traditional values over EU liberal norms. He sees the EU as a bureaucratic empire infringing on national rights, while China and Russia offer partnerships free from lectures on democracy. This strategy is about autonomy. By courting Eastern powers, Hungary gains leverage and reduces dependence on Brussels or Washington. Domestically, Orbán frames this as a patriotic defense of Hungarian interests, resonating with his nationalist base. The Eastern opening is sold as a bold move to secure prosperity and independence for future generations. Years of EU disputes over rule of law and withheld funds have only hardened Orbán's resolve. He views EU financial pressure as blackmail, making Chinese investment not just attractive, but necessary. In China, Orbán finds a partner willing to invest without political strings. This isn't just ideology, it's a practical response to Hungary's standoff with Brussels. The result, a foreign policy that plays East and West against each other, maximizing Hungary's options. For Orbán, it's a classic small state strategy for a new era, but it's one that puts Hungary on a collision course with the EU's foundational values. Hungary's eastern opening is driven by economic strategy as much as politics. While the EU remains Hungary's top trading partner, Orbán's government is aggressively diversifying, especially toward China. Chinese firms have overtaken others as the leading source of new investment, particularly in high-tech sectors like electric vehicle batteries. Companies like KATL and Eve Power are building massive gigafactories, aiming to make Hungary a key hub in Europe's green transition. This industrial policy ties Hungary's future to both German car makers and Chinese battery giants, placing Budapest at the intersection of major interests. The strategy become indispensable to both East and West, but the influx of Chinese capital brings new dependencies and risks, especially as EU-China relations grow tense. Generous subsidies for Chinese firms have drawn scrutiny from Brussels over fair competition. By betting on Chinese technology, Hungary risks a conflict of interest with the EU. The economic rewards are real, but so are the political and strategic dangers. Hungary's future now hinges on its ability to balance these competing pressures. The stakes for both Budapest and the EU could not be higher. Hungary and China now call their relationship an all-weather comprehensive strategic partnership, a unique status in the EU. For China, Hungary is a reliable entry point into the European market and a political ally willing to block EU criticism of Beijing. Hungary's participation in the Belt and Road Initiative is symbolized by the Budapest-Belgrade Railway, financed largely by Chinese loans. Critics see this as debt-trap diplomacy. Budapest calls it vital infrastructure. The partnership extends to technology. While most of Europe restricts Huawei, Hungary welcomes it, making the country a digital outlier in the West. This divergence from EU and NATO security consensus creates unease among Hungary's allies. Orbán gains diplomatic cover. Hungary has repeatedly vetoed EU statements critical of China's human rights record. For Beijing, Hungary's support shatters EU unity and weakens its global clout. In return, China offers investment and political validation, free from Western conditions. This self-reinforcing cycle pulls Budapest deeper into Beijing's orbit. Hungary's stance is reshaping the EU's internal dynamics. The partnership is both a shield and a wedge, protecting Orbán, but dividing Europe. The consequences are rippling far beyond Budapest. Hungary's ambitions go beyond China. It's openly courting the expanded BRICS group. While full membership is unlikely soon, the signaling is clear. Hungary is dissatisfied with the Western-led order. BRICS offers access to vast markets and alternative financing, aligning with Orbán's quest for economic sovereignty. Politically, association with BRICS would amplify Hungary's global voice, positioning it as a bridge between East and West. Orbán wants Hungary seen as a sovereign player, not just a dissenting EU member. But joining BRICS would provoke a crisis in the EU and NATO, given the bloc's inclusion of Russia and China. Membership in Western alliances comes with commitments often at odds with BRICS interests. Hungary's flirtation with BRICS is a high-risk, high-reward move, testing the limits of its Western ties. The message: Hungary will not be bound by old alliances alone. This strategy is reshaping perceptions of Hungary's role in Europe. Whether it succeeds or backfires remains to be seen. The world is watching Hungary's next move. Brussels sees Hungary's actions as a direct threat to EU unity and values. The EU's foundation, democracy, rule of law, and common foreign policy, is being tested by Budapest's defiance. Article 7 proceedings have stalled, but Hungary's vetoes on China and Russia policy paralyze the bloc. This division projects weakness to adversaries and frustrates other member states. Economically, Hungary's special treatment for Chinese investors raises fears of unfair competition and a Trojan horse inside the single market. The European Commission is investigating state aid for projects like the CATL battery plant. Penalties could deepen the rift between Budapest and Brussels. The EU faces a dilemma: act tough and risk a rupture, or go soft and embolden others to follow Hungary's path. The standoff is a defining test of the EU's ability to enforce its rules. The outcome will shape the future of European integration. Hungary's challenge is forcing the EU to confront its own limits. The stakes are existential for both sides. Europe's unity hangs in the balance. Hungary's pivot alarms its neighbors, Romania, Slovakia, and the Czech Republic, who see their security tied to the West. Budapest's ties to Moscow and Beijing are viewed as a betrayal of regional solidarity and a security risk. The Visegrad Group, once a united Central European bloc, is now fractured by Hungary's stance on Russia and Ukraine. Poland supports Ukraine. Hungary maintains ties with Moscow, paralyzing the alliance. In the Balkans, Serbia welcomes Hungary's support, seeing Orban as an ally for multi-vector foreign policy. Hungary's model appeals to leaders frustrated with slow EU accession and Brussels demands. Austria, while economically engaged with China, stays within EU policy, unlike Hungary's confrontational approach. Western European governments fear Hungary's radicalism could destabilize the region and disrupt supply chains. The region is caught between the economic pull of the East and the security anchor of the West. Hungary's realignment is reshaping alliances and creating new uncertainties. The ripple effects are being felt across Central and Eastern Europe. The balance of power in the region is shifting. Hungary's pivot could reshape Europe's geopolitical landscape for years to come. It challenges the cohesion of the Western alliance and could accelerate the EU's fragmentation into core and periphery groups. If Hungary prospers, other EU skeptic states may follow, eroding the bloc's unity. If it falters, it becomes a cautionary tale, reinforcing the need for solidarity. For NATO, Hungary's ties to China and Russia raise concerns about security and intelligence leaks. Hungary's obstruction of aid to Ukraine has already strained the alliance. Globally, Hungary's alignment with BRICS and China feeds the narrative of a declining West. It gives Beijing and Moscow a propaganda victory, and EU and NATO members seeking closer ties with them. Hungary's role, though small, is symbolically significant, a crack in the Western Wall. The post-Cold War certainties are gone. A new, unpredictable era has begun. The world is watching how Europe responds to this challenge. Hungary's gamble could define the next chapter of European history. Hungary's pivot to China and BRICS is a calculated strategy, part ideology, part economic necessity, part defiance of Brussels. Orban asserts sovereignty, attracts Chinese investment, and positions Hungary as a bridge between East and West. The Eastern opening has brought massive Chinese investments and controversial infrastructure projects. Hungary's flirtation with BRICS signals a challenge to the Western-led order. The result: deep divisions within the EU, fractured regional alliances, and growing unease about Russian and Chinese influence. Globally, Hungary's actions weaken Western cohesion and embolden those seeking a multipolar world. The EU faces a fundamental test of its identity and resilience. The outcome will shape Hungary's place in Europe and the future of the European project. The path ahead is uncertain, filled with legal, political, and economic risks. Will Hungary's gamble pay off, or will it become isolated? Is this an isolated anomaly, or a sign of a more fragmented future for Europe? As the continent faces internal fractures and external pressures, the stakes could not be higher. The answer will define Europe's next era.